What is up, YouTube? It has been a while, so been very busy over the last month with Christmas and everything, but I have just been putting off actually recording a YouTube video. So I'm gonna vlog today. It is the first week of January, so we're gonna go through a little bit of like goal setting, what we've been doing over the last few weeks, and you know, what is the kind of plan for the year going forward, because there's some exciting things coming up. I have a very busy day today. I've got a talk to do in a school, I've got training to do, and then obviously I've got to fill you in on what I've been up to. All right, so I'm gonna do my cardio now. I'll chat to you soon. Here we go, 20 minutes, easy work. So keeping up some form of cardio during the off season is definitely something I want to do from now on. Like towards the end of my last powerlifting season, I was doing like about 2 days per week, about 20 to 30 minutes a piece. And obviously, as you would have seen through prep, I was doing like 2 sessions as well, about 20 minutes a piece. So like now I'm kind of really concerned about keeping my resting heart rate down, because generally during the prep, like as you lose body weight, your resting heart rate does go down. Like at times it was in like the low 30s. It's back up to like the kind of low 50s at the moment. So I do want to make sure that it stays there, especially as body weight starts to go on, because you know, as body weight starts to go on, you know, things like blood glucose management can start to be impaired. So that's going to impact how you're partitioning nutrients to the muscles or to fat cells, as well as just things like looking after the heart over the long term, because obviously I want to live long. I don't want to just die massive, as cool as that would be. So making sure I'm keeping in some of cardiovascular activity, pretty important. As you can hear, only after starting, I'm already starting to get out of breath. But then again, I'm talking and holding my camera up. All right, now to sustain this pace. Completed it, mate. So that is cardio ticked off. So one thing I want to touch on in today's video, because it is like the first week of January, is like goal setting. So improving my cardio and kind of keeping it in a good place is one of the goals I have for myself for this year. And when it comes to kind of setting goals, you do have to always kind of make it kind of specific, have some kind of way that you can measure the outcomes. Think about the kind of process goals, why you want to achieve that goal, and potential barriers that you will face in trying to achieve that goal. So I discussed already like why I want to, you know, have that goal. So it is going to improve my health long term. It can improve my muscle gain outcomes through better nutrient partitioning. I can sustain higher level of effort in like high rep sets, so I can take my muscles closer to failure and therefore get better results from my training. There's some degree of measurability to it, because I know if my heart rate is going over 50 in terms of the resting heart rate, I can see that through my Oura ring on a day-to-day basis, how that heart rate is trending. And in terms of barriers, so at the moment in the apartment that I'm in, I've placed that I can do cardio right across from my apartment. So it's literally an on-site gym. Whereas now, next week, I'm moving to Canada and I won't have that facility. So that is a barrier that I will need to overcome. So the way I can overcome that is by either joining a gym close by me that I can do cardio in, the closest one preferably, or I can buy a spin bike. I'll probably buy a spin bike. So the improving and sustaining a good level of cardio fitness for me, that is part of a goal within a goal, because it's intrinsically related to my muscle gain and strength gain goals, right? And I do have like a bodybuilding season that I want to do in 2025. So that again is a small part of this process that is going to be very important for me to sustain going forward. So it is important when you are kind of making some goals that they, like, you know, they slot into a bigger overarching goal that you do have. So my bigger overarching goal is to do really well in my 2025 bodybuilding season. So that cardio piece right now, it may seem very unimportant, but that is a small part of the puzzle as to what is going to help me deliver a better package for my next season. So I'll talk a little bit more about like the muscle gain goals and the strength goals later on in the video when I bring you through my training for today. But like, where the fuck have I been, right? So I haven't posted a video in a while. So it's been Christmas like kind of period, like the last few weeks, and just naturally enough, I didn't really have much to actually document. I was going on a lot of nights out. I was eating a lot of nice food. I've gained a lot of body weight. So at the moment, I'm weighing between 86 87. We're about 6 weeks post show. So yeah, it's about 10 kilos of a strength increase, a weight increase in the last few weeks. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm carrying a bit more body fat than I probably would like. I would definitely did not control my eating as well as I could have during the Christmas period. Like, that was kind of impacted by a lot of nights out with a lot of heavy drinking, a lot of shitty night's sleep, like, you know, just overeating on things like desserts and cakes during the Christmas period. And it wasn't a case of me being out of control. I was completely in control. I knew what I was doing. I just wanted to enjoy myself, right? So that led to me being a little bit higher in body fat than I'd like. So the kind of plan with like my body weight right now is we're keeping my calories at about 3,700 at the moment. I'm gonna pretty much kind of maintain that for like the next 4 weeks. Just continue progressing my training, keeping to my cardio, keep to my steps, and kind of see what type of impact that has on my body weight before we kind of really get into like an off season by February. So one thing that is actually really cool, right? So obviously I've gained a lot of body weight in like the last few weeks following the show. I don't think I've actually put on much muscle mass. I think a lot of it has been body fat, but like there has been a lot of things that have restored, right? So I was meant to do a video on get my bloods done, but the actual kind of method of getting my bloods done that I chose, so I went with Let's Get Checked, and I thought it was going to be a very easy, straightforward process to actually draw the blood, and it was not. So I got my cholesterol test back, I got my thyroid back, they're both perfectly fine. So recovered in those kind of respects. Well, cholesterol wasn't really going to be impacted by prep anyway. But then we had the testosterone one, and the testosterone one, it didn't actually come back with actual results because the blood didn't hemolyze, so there wasn't enough blood within the actual sample, or the sample was kind of tainted. So I will have to get that done at a later point. But a good kind of sign of my testosterone definitely being kind of recovered is I'm getting boners again, right? Maybe I'll have sex again. It's fantastic. So as you know, that's something that suffered during prep when I started to get very, very lean, and I started to go below like 84 kilos. Just couldn't get boners anymore, but they're back. Fantastic. And other cool things that are coming back. So strength is like just taking off. So this week of training just gone, so squatted 190 for 5, I deadlifted 240 for 3, I was back doing 120 on the bench, and those are things that, like, you know, I obviously dropped out the squats before the first show, and like only 6 weeks ago I was struggling to squat 140. Then deadlifts, you know, again post prep or during prep, I was only really kind of doing it intermittently. Strength was definitely declining, but to be able to do 240 for sets of 3, that's pretty encouraging. And then bench, like I stopped benching completely in June, so for that to come back to 120 as quickly as it has, because again, only 6 weeks ago I was struggling to bench 90 kilos for like a set of 3 or 5. So for that to come back for straight sets of 120 for 5s, like again, very encouraging. Like only 6 weeks post show, like off season hasn't even really started, like my body weight hasn't even really settled, so we have a very good starting place now, or we will in the next few weeks, to have a really productive few years of training. And then also another reason I just have not been documenting is because at the moment life is pretty manic. So next week I'm moving to Canada. Like I know we said this like in like November or November about moving there, but the fact that like it's happening next week is pretty crazy. We had a flood in our apartment this like on New Year's Eve, so we've been trying to get that sorted, as well as like move everything out of the apartment. So it's been a little bit all over the place. So I appreciate that I'm recording this today. So I'm gonna wrap up this kind of segment of the vlog now. Gonna have breakfast, do the talking to school. I'll try to get some clips of that, and we'll show you some training, and we'll take you through the rest of my goals. Who am I? What a deep philosophical question to ask. I mean, this is all the empty chairs. So this is the second time I've given a talk in school. I gave a talk in school before Christmas. I actually uploaded some clips for it, but I want to actually make the talk I'm going to give now into a bit more of a kind of longer video, like a video on its own. It's all about essentially like 5 things I wish I knew about health and fitness when I was in school. So yeah, probably won't get any kind of clips here because, you know, kids don't want them kind of their parents getting at me for putting videos of them up on the internet. So I'll leave that for a separate video. Okay, so it is now 8 o'clock. All my meals are finished for the day. I'm wrapping up the day. You see my training. You got an update in the morning. But I did say I was going to go through essentially how I'm kind of going about setting goals and what type of goals I am setting for the year ahead. Okay, so I have my laptop open up here and I'm just going to show you the kind of process I went through to kind of set some of the goals I have for the year to come. Okay, so this is the tracking document that I am currently using. So my good man Paddy Farrell made this for me last year when we were setting some goals. So you can see down there I have big life goals, so I don't need to go through them with you. I have my 2022 goals there. I did a review on those last week to see what I kind of achieved, what the kind of gap between the things that I did not achieve was and things I still have yet to achieve. And these are just two of the kind of overarching goals I have for this year. So that's just two of the kind of overarching goals I have. So I have three overarching goals in general. Okay, one is business related, one is the social media, and the other is competing in powerlifting, right? So these are the kind of overall goals. And essentially what I've done then is I have broken them down into being a little bit more specific, like what exactly is like growing my social media, like what specifically would I be aiming towards, followers on YouTube, podcast subscribers, followers on Instagram. Like these are kind of things that I'm going to be trying to essentially close the gap on over the course of the next year. And now you can pretty much see that like I have like the specifics there, then I have my processes there as to how I will kind of go about this. And with that then I've went through essentially why I want to achieve the goal, what are the potential barriers that I'll have to face, because they're like I've grown my kind of social media pretty decently over like the last few years, albeit has been a little bit of a slog, probably been a little bit slower because I went through periods of procrastination, not being as consistent, not putting out as kind of good content. So that's kind of one of my aims for this year, is to put out more kind of good content, more valuable content. And one of my kind of aims on the channel, for example, is to have like a vlog like this, but as well as like in more kind of informative videos. So it could just be like an exercise demonstration or like, what is protein, that kind of thing, right? So like obviously you're watching this, right? You probably have some questions. If you have any topics that you think would be valuable for me to cover, do drop them below for suggestions and I'll put them into my list. However, more importantly, we are here because you have been following my journey from the powerlifter to bodybuilder. Now this year, I'm not going from bodybuilder to powerlifter because I've already been a powerlifter. I am a powerlifter. I'm also a bodybuilder now. Okay, so I suppose you could say I'm a power builder, right? So I'm going to be moving to Canada next week, and that kind of gives me an opportunity to actually kind of compete in powerlifting abroad, like compete in powerlifting in Canada, as well as potentially compete in the United States, which would be deadly because I would like to compete in like the IPF's new affiliate in the US, Powerlifting America. I have already kind of looked up some of the competitions that there is there. There's one in July, which I very may well enter. I haven't really fully decided if I'm going to do that yet because I do kind of want to see how my next few months of training go, because I don't want to compete again for the sake of competing and just getting on the platform. I want to compete if I know I'm going to be able to progress on my last best total. So my last best total was 700. I don't want to compete in a powerlifting meet if I am not getting very close to that or above. So you'll see I have a pretty lofty goal here, right? Compete in either summer or winter and achieve a 750 plus total. So my total at the moment, 750 kilo gap there, and I have to the end of 23 to try to actually achieve that. Now, achieving a 50 increase on a total when you're already lifting at a pretty high standard, it's a big ask. However, if I want to be where I want to be in 5-10 years time when it comes to like my lifting goals, this is what I need to kind of strive towards. One of my big goals in life is to represent Ireland in powerlifting, like at an IPF competition. Now, whether that is me competing as a Masters or me competing as an Open, it doesn't really matter. But I need to close the gap between me and the guys who are getting the invites to compete internationally with Ireland. Okay, so I need to close the gap on Keane, Matthew, Andrew Rowe, like all you guys. I'm coming for you, right? Maybe you fucking wild out. But obviously linked to that, right? I need to think about like what are the kind of processes that I need to go through to actually achieve those goals, right? What are the kind of step-by-step things along the way that I'll try to need to achieve to make this goal somewhat realistic. So one of those things is getting my weight back up. Okay, I know I perform my best in terms of strength training when I'm at around this body weight. Okay, so I have to close the gap on that. I've got about 6 to 8 kilos to gain. So how am I going to achieve that? It's just going to be a case of making sure I'm adhering to my calorie surplus for an extended period of time. Also making sure that calorie surplus is reasonable so I don't get too fat. So then as well, I have some type of strength targets for me to aim towards throughout my training block. I don't necessarily intend to actually do like mock meets. I rather base my kind of performance and how, like, I rather kind of assess my performance based off how my rep maxes are trending. Okay, so how my end of block rep maxes are trending. So at the moment, I do want to get to my kind of current 3RMs and above that pretty soon. So my all-time best 3RMs are 230 squat, a 150 bench, and a 260 deadlift. So I want by the end of 2022, these were my kind of best kind of 3RMs after the post-competition phase. Now I already did 240 this week, 190 there this week as well for 5, and then 130 today. Okay, so I want to surpass my rep maxes by the end of this year at the very least, right? So 240 for 3 on a squat, 160 for 3 on a bench, and then 280 for 3 on the actual deadlift. Okay, now for me to achieve 750, that works out at 275 squat, a 175 bench, and a 300 kilo. I think I can surpass the 300 kilo deadlift relatively handily. Like I'm 12.5 kilos off that. The actual squat, you know, I could potentially do it in reps. I haven't set this goal to be whether it's in knee sleeves or reps. So current best squat is 252. I reckon with, you know, a good few months of kind of training under my belt, get my body weight up, maybe potentially getting into reps, I reckon I could get that. The bench is probably the one that is probably the hardest one for me to achieve, because my upper body tends to be a bit weaker. But with the bodybuilding training that I'm doing at the moment, my upper body frequency has been increased. The work around my kind of shoulders has been increased, the work around my chest has been increased, because we do want to increase my muscle mass there to help me in my 2025 bodybuilding season. And we have then some accessory goals here, okay, just so that I will be diligent in, like, you know, making sure I'm actually training hard with my accessory lifts. And then other things I'll be making sure to do is just make sure I'm completing my weekly training, updating my training log tracker, and then the kind of whys as to why I want to do it, right? So I've mentioned the national team qualifying there already, but ultimately, like, before I even got into powerlifting, one of the reasons I got into powerlifting is because it's just a vehicle for me to get bigger. Powerlifting helps me be engaged with training progress. I find it very difficult to be engaged with training if I am just focused on the actual outcome of my physique. As well, I cannot simply get onto a leg press and have the same mindset going onto a leg press like I can with a squat. Like, I just can't, okay? It's not for me. Similar with a dumbbell bench as opposed to a bench press, or, you know, glute ham raises doing it, or a hip extension, or, you know, glute drive compared to like a deadlift. There's just something about those lifts that just fucking get me, and they make me be really, really consistent with training. And as well, there's obviously the very kind of tangible way that I can see my progress on those lifts going up over time with the total, and then that usually correlates with in myself to getting bigger. That is going to correlate to me as well by the time we get to 2025 to having a better physique the next time I compete in the bodybuilding stage. In regards to my actual training setup at the moment, so I'm not going to go through my entire split because it's been a long video already, but I mentioned there that we have a big focus for the next few blocks at least, on bringing up the likes of my delts, bringing up my chest, and bringing up my quads as well, because these are areas that I was told by the judges. We're not told directly, but kind of indirectly. I was told by the judges that my actual midsection was a little bit blocked, okay, and relative to the rest of my body parts, okay. So that just kind of means that I don't really have an X frame. So I need to make my delts wider. I need to make my quad sweep a lot kind of broader as well. And that's going to minimize the actual kind of thickness that my midsection will have, create more of an X frame, and therefore I will look more kind of aesthetic on stage, okay? And the actual kind of good thing about this is because it is going to carry over to my powerlifting training too. Because if I'm focusing more on bringing up my quads as well as my delts, that is going to contribute to better pressing performances, or at least more potential to press more lows because I have bigger muscle in those areas. And the bench press does use a lot of anterior delts, for example. And then as well with quads are generally a weak point for me in the squat anyway. I generally tend to kick my hips back, which would indicate quad weakness. And if I have bigger quads, I have more potential to get them stronger, and therefore I could potentially squat more weight. So all of these goals are kind of rolling into one, focusing on me getting bigger and stronger, right? That's the overarching goal. But for me to kind of accomplish those goals, that big kind of overarching goal, I need to make that goal a little bit more kind of detailed, right? Compete in parallel. Okay, make that detailed again. 750 total by the end of the year. Make that detailed again. What are you going to do on a day-to-day basis? How are you going to measure that? What are you going to aim for? Like before the end of the year, every 3 months, every 6 weeks. Like why could you potentially not achieve that goal? So that's all kind of things that you need to really kind of focus on. If you do have, especially if you do have a kind of broad kind of time span for a goal. Like if I was to just say I'm going to train and wait until 2025 and we're going to see what happens, right? Just going to keep training away, keep increasing my loads, increase my reps, increase my sets, blah blah blah, with no kind of direct like kind of direction for my body weight, no direction for like, you know, what type of like goals I'm gonna aim for in the gym. Like it's gonna be very hard to keep on track. So it's really important if you are making physique development goals, strength development goals, any kind of goals, do have some specificity to those goals. You're able to measure them. Like, you know, they have to be like right for where you are at the time of your life right now, and they have to have some kind of time limit to them to succeed, because that's going to give you a little bit more fire in the belly. So anyway, that is pretty much it. I hope this video was somewhat useful. I hope this is going to help you kind of set some of your own goals and achieve some of your own goals going forward. This is, again, it's going to be the first video of the year. I plan to have so many more videos coming out over the course of next year, because I do want to help a lot more people, especially because, you know, the natural bodybuilding scene in Ireland especially is like, it's small, but it's definitely growing. The powerlifting scene is already there, but I do want to try to, like, you know, I suppose educate people and kind of document my own kind of journey along the way, because it's going to be nice to look back in 2025 and see, you know, kind of where I was right now, where I finished the last bodybuilding season on, and see all the progress I've made, and hopefully that will inspire a lot of you along the way. Right, so that's it. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, evening, whatever it is. I'll talk to you in the next one.